Okay, so let me start out. I need to correct something. A student here asked me a question at the end of Thursday's class, which I answered, and I went back and checked my answer, and it turns out I was wrong. So I want to clarify this so that there's no misunderstanding. It turns out that you cannot use the non-blocking assignment with a continuous assignment statement. Some compilers will generate an error with this. So if you're using a continuous assignment statement, use the non-blocking assignments. I'm sorry, the blocking assignments. Okay. Questions on that? Okay. So last time we were talking about these things called tasks and functions. And this table 8-1 shows the difference between the two. The thing I do want, and we'll cover each one of these differences, but the thing I want to emphasize is the fact that both the functions and the tasks are defined. Their template is in the module in which they are used. They're local to that module, and they are not defined outside of that module. Now this differs from how we've been treating modules, because you have a module template, and the module template cannot have another module template inside of it. The module templates are all declared external to the module in which they are instantiated. So we'll start out with tasks. And here are some of the properties of the task. It must be called from an initial or an always statement. Now notice I say called from. The module or the task template is separate from the initial or always statement. May have any number of in, or I should say input, output, or in-out ports. Including none. And it may have # delays, events, or wait statements. That's one of the difference between a task and a function. Functions cannot have anything that would cause a time delay. The syntax is task, optional automatic, task name, terminated with a semicolon. You will then have port declarations, any procedural statements, and by procedural statements I'm talking about system tasks like $ display, assignments, anything along that line. And then end task. Task is a keyword. End task is a keyword. And automatic is a keyword. Now some notes on the task. Default type for all ports is reg. No nets allowed. I'll give you an example here. This is example 8-2. This is a module, example 8-2. Module operation, end module. And down here is your module template. See task, task name, and task keywords. And this module, or this task template, is contained within the module operation. It is then called here, and it's called inside of an always statement. Now you'll notice in the task template, I have some outputs, and they are defined on the left-hand side of an assignment statement. Notice there is no initial or always statement required. But in a blocking assignment, the variable on the left-hand side of an assignment has to be declared as a reg variable. So that's by default. So you just declare it as an output, and then you can go ahead and assign it, but you did not have to declare it as a, redeclare it as a reg variable. In a normal module, if I had declared AB underbar XOR as an output, and I wanted to do an assignment, I would have to redeclare it as a reg variable. that is not required in the task template because the default is reg variable. Ports in tasks are not equal to ports in modules.
Could I ask you?
Unfortunately, the same name is used, port, but they have a different interpretation in tasks and in modules. Yeah, do you have a question?
So I think for this homework, there's an extra credit thing that's.
I don't want to talk about homework right now.
Oh, okay.
Okay, the difference is, what are ports and modules?
That's required.
No, not type. What are they used for?
Input, output?
More specifically, that's correct, but more specifically, it's used to connect signals to modules. Ports in tasks are used to pass variable values. Okay, so there is a difference between.
So they're just like inputs then, instead of I/O ports, inputs.
I don't want you to think of them as inputs. Not in the same sense as a module, because they don't represent signals, they represent values. And in fact, to emphasize that, values are passed by position. I think a closer interpretation would be, and I hate to use this one, in functions you have arguments, which are values that you pass that are then manipulated by the function. That's the same interpretation for task. You pass it values, which it can then use to manipulate to produce other values, but they're not to be treated as signals.